The room went completely silent when she said the words no one expected to hear at a billionaire's wedding. "These are Nolan and Hudson," the woman said calmly, her voice steady in a room full of power and privilege. "Your sons." In that instant, the groom's smile collapsed. His fiancée froze. And every guest realized this was no longer a wedding. It was a reckoning. 8 years earlier, he had thrown her out while she was pregnant, convinced she was too poor, too black, too insignificant to matter. Tonight, he invited her back to humiliate her in front of high society. What he didn't know was that she was the woman who had secretly kept his company alive for 3 years. He didn't know she controlled his future, and he certainly didn't expect her to arrive with the truth walking beside her. Because this wasn't revenge, it was justice, delivered where he least expected it. Gavin Mercer believed humiliation was an art form, and tonight he was certain he had mastered it. From the top floor of the Sterling Grand Hotel in downtown Dallas, he adjusted his cufflinks and admired his reflection. Italian tuxedo, custom tailoring, the kind of confidence that came from finally being accepted by the kind of people who once pretended not to hear your name when you said it out loud. At 42, Gavin had rewritten his story. The poor kid from a forgettable neighborhood was now the founder of Mercer Ridge Consulting, a firm whispered about in boardrooms and praised at charity galas. In just a few hours, he would marry Sloane Kensington, the daughter of one of Texas's most influential business families. After tonight, no one would ever question whether Gavin Mercer belonged. No one, except one person. He reached for the last invitation on his desk. Thick cream-colored paper, gold lettering, heavy enough to feel important. Brielle Hart. He smiled, slow and deliberate. 8 years ago, he had pushed her out of his life with 2 suitcases and a handful of cash. Tonight, he would invite her back, not as an equal, but as a reminder of what happened when someone like her tried to reach too high. "Ms. Dalton," Gavin said, calling his assistant. Kira Dalton stepped in, tablet in hand. "Yes, Mr. Mercer?" "Have this delivered personally," he said, sliding the envelope across the desk. "And make sure the message is clear. Tell her I'd be honored by her presence on the happiest day of my life." Kira hesitated just a fraction of a second. She had delivered hundreds of invitations, but something about this one felt sharp. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. When the door closed, Gavin turned toward the window. Dallas stretched beneath him, glowing and obedient. This city had taught him something valuable. Success didn't erase where you came from, it buried it. And he had buried his past deep, especially Brielle. His phone buzzed. Trent Maddox, his business partner. "Gavin, we need to talk," Trent said, voice tense. Gavin sighed. "Please tell me this isn't about wedding logistics. It's about Silver Falcon Capital." That got his attention. Silver Falcon wasn't just a client, it was the reason Mercer Ridge still stood upright. Nearly 60% of their revenue came from that single consulting contract, a mysterious investment firm. No cameras on video calls, no public appearances, just clean signatures and impossible results. "What about them?" Gavin asked. "They want a face-to-face meeting," Trent said. "After the wedding, the founder specifically asked not to interfere with your big day." Gavin frowned. "Founder? You mean she?" "Apparently. And Gavin, she knows things about you, about the firm, about your personal life." Gavin laughed it off. "Powerful people always do. That's why they're powerful." But when the call ended, unease flickered through him. Brief, unwanted. He shook it away and glanced again at Brielle's name. She would come. He was sure of it. Women like Brielle never stopped wanting to be seen. And tonight she would see exactly what she had lost. Across the city, Brielle Hart stood in a sunlit living room that looked nothing like the one Gavin remembered. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, quiet luxury that didn't beg for attention. Her sons, Nolan and Hudson, both 7, sat at the kitchen island working through math problems, arguing softly over who was faster. Their skin mirrored hers, deep, warm brown, and their confidence was the kind that only came from being loved without conditions. Brielle held the envelope loosely in her hand. The name Gavin Mercer felt strange now. Smaller than it once had, less powerful. "Mom?" Nolan asked, noticing her expression. "Is something wrong?" She exhaled slowly. "No, baby, just unexpected." Hudson leaned closer. Is it him? She hadn't told them much, just that their father wasn't someone who had chosen to stay. Yes, Brielle said honestly, it's him. 8 years ago, she had been 26 and brilliant in ways no one around her seemed ready to acknowledge. Numbers came easily to her. Patterns revealed themselves without effort. But in rooms full of polished smiles and inherited confidence, her intelligence was often overlooked until it became useful. She met Gavin in college. He was ambitious, charming, always trying to prove something. She helped him study, helped him dream, helped him believe he could outrun his own insecurities. They married quietly, loved each other loudly. Then Gavin got his first taste of real power. Suddenly, Brielle wasn't just his wife. She was his liability. You stand out too much, he had told her once, voice low, careful. The way you talk, the way you wear your hair. People notice. Notice, that word had followed her everywhere. In elevators where conversations stopped when she entered. In meetings where her ideas were praised only after being repeated by someone else. In stores where security followed her while ignoring everyone else. When she told Gavin she was pregnant with twins, she expected fear. She didn't expect cruelty. This isn't the time, he said flatly. I'm building something. Our family is something, she replied. He looked at her then, truly looked at her, and she realized he had already decided who she was allowed to be in his future. The next morning, her bags were by the door. This is for the best, he said, leaving cash on the dresser like an apology he didn't mean. She had walked away with her dignity barely intact and a promise burning in her chest. My children will never be made to feel unwanted. The years that followed were unforgiving. A rented room in Oak Cliff, long nights, short sleep, clients who doubted her before she spoke, investors who smiled politely and said things like, "You're very articulate," as if surprised. But Brielle didn't need their approval. She needed results. She found fraud where others saw balance sheets. She cut waste without cutting people. She saved small businesses that no one else cared to notice. Word spread quietly, then loudly. Walter Briggs had been the turning point, a seasoned construction owner losing millions without explanation. Brielle found the theft in one night. You didn't just save my company, he told her, shaken. You saved my reputation. From that moment on, Brielle stopped shrinking. Silver Falcon Capital wasn't born out of revenge. It was born out of clarity. She saw how often brilliant people, especially people who looked like her, were ignored until desperation forced someone to listen. She built an empire that invested in what others overlooked. And 3 years ago, when Mercer Ridge Consulting came knocking, she had almost laughed. Gavin Mercer, still climbing, still pretending. She never revealed herself. She didn't need to. Power didn't require recognition, just leverage. Now she read his invitation again. He thought she was coming to be humbled. Brielle picked up her phone. Serena, she said calmly to her attorney, I need a contract review, and I need it clean. A pause. Is this about Mercer Ridge? Yes, Brielle said. And Serena, prepare the termination clause, just in case. She looked over at Nolan and Hudson, their laughter filling the room. This wasn't about revenge. This was about truth. And sometimes truth needed an audience. Have you ever been underestimated because of your background, your skin color, or where you came from? The invitation didn't sit quietly on Brielle Hart's kitchen counter. It pulsed. Not because it was loud, but because it represented something unfinished. Something Gavin Mercer believed he still controlled. 2 days after it arrived, Brielle stood inside the glass-walled conference room at Silver Falcon Capital, overlooking downtown Dallas. The city moved below her like a living spreadsheet. Patterns, flows, pressure points. She thrived in that clarity. Isabel Monroe, her chief operations officer, slid a tablet across the table. I pulled everything on Mercer Ridge Consulting, she said. You were right. They're standing on one leg. Brielle didn't smile. How bad? 61% of their annual revenue comes directly from us. Without Silver Falcon, they won't collapse overnight. But they'll bleed fast. Layoffs, asset sales, reputation damage. Brielle folded her hands. And Gavin? Isabel hesitated. He's still telling people he built that firm on grit and instinct. Brielle let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Of course he is. She remembered what grit looked like when it came from someone like her. It wasn't applauded, it was questioned. It was audited twice, it was assumed to be luck. She tapped the table once. Prepare the notice, not yet. Just prepare it. Isabel nodded, then added carefully, you know what people will say. Brielle met her gaze. They already say it, that I'm angry, that I'm bitter, that I'm playing the race card. She stood, shoulders straight. Let them. That afternoon, Brielle visited her tailor. Navy silk, clean lines, no excess. The dress wasn't meant to shout wealth. It was meant to whisper authority. On the way out, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered anyway. Brielle Hart. There was a pause, then a woman's voice, polished, uncertain. This is Sloane Kensington, Gavin's fiancée. Brielle closed her eyes for half a second. Hello, Sloane. I hope this isn't inappropriate, Sloane continued quickly. Gavin mentioned he invited you. I wanted to make sure you felt comfortable. Comfortable. The word landed wrong. Brielle kept her tone neutral. That's kind of you. Another pause. I don't know much about you, Sloane admitted. Gavin doesn't talk about the past. And Brielle almost said, he talks about it plenty, just not honestly. Instead, she said, the past has a way of showing up when it's ready. Sloane laughed nervously. I guess it does. Well, I hope we meet. You will, Brielle said, and ended the call. That night, Nolan and Hudson sat cross-legged on the living room floor, building something complicated out of mismatched blocks. Mom, Hudson said without looking up. Are people going to stare at us? Brielle paused. Why do you ask? Because they always do, Nolan added, especially in places with fancy floors. The truth sat heavy in her chest. Yes, she said gently, some people will stare. Hudson frowned. Did we do something wrong? No, Brielle said firmly. They stare because they don't see many families that look like ours in rooms like that. And that's bad? Nolan asked. Brielle knelt beside them. It's uncomfortable, but it's not bad. We belong anywhere we walk into. They nodded, absorbing it the way children absorb truth when it's said without fear. Are we meeting him? Hudson asked quietly. Brielle didn't dodge it. You'll see him. Nolan considered that. Do we have to call him Dad? No, Brielle said softly. You don't owe anyone a title they didn't earn. Saturday arrived dressed in blue skies and arrogance. The Sterling Grand buzzed with privilege, valets in pressed uniforms. Guests who knew exactly how loudly to laugh. Security that watched certain faces longer than others. Gavin Mercer stood at the entrance, greeting donors and politicians, basking in the approval he had chased his entire life. When he smiled, it was wide. When he shook hands, it was firm. This was his world. Everything's perfect, he told Trent Maddox, clapping him on the shoulder. Tonight seals it. Trent forced a grin. You sure about inviting Brielle? Gavin scoffed. Relax, she'll come quietly. She always did. And at that exact moment, a red Ferrari glided to the curb. The engine cut. Conversations stuttered. The valet froze. Brielle stepped out first. The dress caught the light without begging for it. Her posture did the rest. She moved like someone who didn't need permission. Then Nolan and Hudson climbed out. Matching suits, steady expressions. The lobby shifted. Eyes followed them. Not curiosity, assessment. Security took a step forward. Ma'am, one of them said, voice polite but tight. This is a private event. Brielle didn't flinch. I'm invited. The man glanced at her invitation, then at the boys. And the children? They're with me. A pause stretched too long. Brielle met his gaze. Is there a problem? Before he could answer, a guest nearby whispered, That's Brielle Hart. Another voice followed. Silver Falcon Capital. The security guard stiffened. Of course, welcome, Miss Hart. The apology came late. It always did. Inside the ballroom, the energy shifted again. Whispers rippled like electricity. Who is she? Those kids, are they models? She's powerful. Gavin heard the murmurs before he saw her. When he turned, the blood drained from his face. Brielle Hart wasn't supposed to look like this. She wasn't supposed to walk like she owned the room. She definitely wasn't supposed to arrive with two boys who looked exactly like him. Gavin? Sloane asked, noticing his expression. What's wrong? He didn't answer. Brielle walked toward him calmly, her sons at her sides. Each step felt measured, deliberate. She stopped in front of him. "Hello, Gavin," she said, voice even. "Thank you for the invitation." Gavin swallowed. "Brielle, These are Nolan and Hudson," she continued. "Your sons." The room inhaled sharply. Sloane's smile faltered. "Gavin, what is she talking about?" Gavin stared at the boys, panic cracking through his composure. "You never told me?" "I did," Brielle said quietly. "You told me it wasn't the right time. You told me they would ruin your future." Sloane stepped back as if struck. "Is that true?" Before Gavin could answer, Trent leaned in, whispering urgently, "Gavin, she's Silver Falcon." The words hit like a gunshot. Gavin's mouth opened, closed. Brielle watched the realization settle, not with satisfaction, but with precision. "Yes," she said, "I'm the client keeping your firm alive." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was catastrophic. The silence after Brielle's words felt heavier than the crystal chandeliers above them. Gavin Mercer stood frozen, the confident groom replaced by a man who suddenly realized the ground beneath him was borrowed. Around them, the ballroom of the Sterling Grand, filled with donors, executives, and carefully curated power, leaned in without moving. No one wanted to miss what came next. Sloane Kensington was the first to break the stillness. "Your sons?" she asked Gavin, her voice steady but thin, like glass stretched too far. "You told me you didn't have children." Gavin opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time that night, he had no speech prepared. Brielle didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. 8 years ago, Gavin decided he wasn't ready to be a father. Not with me. Not with children who didn't fit the future he imagined. She looked around the room, meeting eyes that had once looked past her kind. "I raised them alone, not because I wanted to, but because I had to." Whispers rippled outward. Some guests shifted uncomfortably. Others watched with something closer to shame. Sloane turned fully toward Gavin now. "Is this true?" He tried to reach for her hand. She pulled it back. "I was under pressure," he said weakly. "You don't understand the expectations." "No," Sloane said quietly. "I don't understand abandoning your children." The words landed harder than any accusation Brielle could have made. Trent Maddox stepped forward, panic clear on his face. "Brielle, maybe we can discuss this privately." "There's no need." "There is a need," Brielle interrupted, still calm, "because Gavin invited me here to remind me of my place. He wanted an audience." She took a slim folder from her bag. The soft sound of paper against paper echoed through the room. "For 3 years," she continued, "Silver Falcon Capital has advised Mercer Ridge Consulting. We cut costs. We prevented collapse. We protected jobs." She looked directly at Gavin. "You benefited from my work while pretending I didn't exist." Gavin shook his head. "You're doing this out of revenge." Brielle paused. Then she smiled, not coldly but sadly. "No," she said, "I'm doing this out of responsibility." She turned slightly so others could hear. "Silver Falcon Capital will be terminating its consulting contract with Mercer Ridge, effective in 30 days as outlined in Clause 15B. Trent paled. "That's over half our revenue." "I know," Brielle said, "which is why Silver Falcon will also fund a transition plan, severance packages, career placement support. No one who worked honestly will be punished for one man's choices." The room shifted again. This time the whispers carried a different tone. Gavin stared at her. "You're destroying everything I built." Brielle met his eyes evenly. "I'm removing the illusion. There's a difference." She glanced down at Nolan and Hudson, who stood quietly beside her. "These boys were never a mistake. They are my greatest success." Nolan spoke then, his voice small but clear. "Mom, are we going home soon?" Brielle smiled softly. "Yes, baby, we are." She turned back to Gavin one last time. "You once told me I didn't belong in rooms like this. Tonight you learned something important." "What's that?" he asked hoarsely. "That dignity doesn't come from money," she said. "And respect isn't inherited, it's earned." Sloane stepped away from Gavin completely. She looked at Brielle, not with anger, but with something like clarity. "I'm sorry," Sloane said. "For what it's worth, I'm glad your sons have you." Brielle nodded. "So am I. As Brielle walked toward the exit, the room parted instinctively. Some guests lowered their eyes. Others watched with open admiration. A few even clapped, quietly at first, then louder, as if recognizing something rare. Outside, the night air felt clean. Nolan buckled his seatbelt and looked back toward the hotel. Is he sad? Brielle started the engine. Yes. Do you feel bad? Hudson asked. She considered the question carefully. I feel finished, she said, and that's a good thing. The red Ferrari pulled away from the Sterling Grand without looking back. Weeks later, Mercer Ridge Consulting downsized. Gavin sold the penthouse. The wedding never happened. The headlines were brief and polite. No one likes to linger on fallen men. Silver Falcon Capital continued to grow. Brielle invested in overlooked founders. She funded scholarships for kids who looked like Nolan and Hudson. She built a company culture where no one had to make themselves smaller to succeed. One evening, as she tucked her sons into bed, Nolan asked, Mom, do people still stare? Brielle smiled. Sometimes. And does it still hurt? She shook her head. Not anymore, because now I know something they don't. What? That we belong everywhere we choose to stand. The world hadn't suddenly become fair, but it had become honest. And for Brielle Hart, that was enough. Do you think Gavin deserved forgiveness, or did Brielle handle it the right way? If you like this story, comment an yes below to let me know. Where are you watching from today? What country or city? And if this story moved you, please share it so others can see it too. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future.